whatever your project is, whatever you're doing with this project, make sure that you do have a plan, that it includes a good budget, that you know how much it's going to cost. Don't just say, oh, don't worry, we'll figure it out. No, you're a professional, you're doing this now, you gotta have a plan and a budget that's, it might not be completely 100% on point, but it's gotta be pretty damn close. One of the easiest red flags to spot when it comes to construction and a project is vague or incomplete plans. What that means is something is missing, something is not drawn on there. It doesn't mean that it's not approved by the city, because they will approve a lot of stuff, sometimes missing a lot of stuff, okay? So when you look at the project, make sure that the plans kind of say enough about this project where there's not going to be misunderstanding or cost overruns or time delays and stuff like that. So look at the plans, and if you don't understand them, that's a problem right there, okay? So if they're vague, make sure that the person that's in charge tells you what exactly they want, or if it's your plan, right, and you're giving it to the subcontractors, to your subcontractors, like to your framer, okay, or your foundation guy, make sure that they understand that everything is in there, because if they have to make their own decisions, if something is not clear, it's going to cost you money, they're going to do it wrong. So make sure that the plans are consistent and that they're not vague or kind of missing something, Now this one is totally on you, okay? If you are doing a project, let's say you bought a piece of property and you want to develop it or do something with it, this is something that you got to spot for yourself, okay? And it is when your estimates or budget is not detailed or clear, okay? This is a red flag for you. Whatever your project is, you as the owner, you as the main person, you have to have a detailed plan of estimates and detailed plan of the budget, okay? It's one of those things where you don't go into this thing without having a clear budget or clear estimate. It's gonna cost you later, you're gonna be struggling all over the place. So make sure whatever your project is, whatever you're doing with this project, make sure that you do have a plan, that it includes a good budget, that you know how much it's gonna cost. Don't just say, oh, don't worry, we'll figure it out. No, you're a professional, you're doing this now, you gotta have a plan and a budget that's, it might not be completely 100% on point, but it's gotta be pretty damn close. Another one of those red flags that should really pop at you when you're doing a project, and this is for yourself, as well as if you were hired to do a GC job, is lack of permits. Like if there is no permits for everything that you need, that's a problem. It might take a long time to get that certain permit. There's different types of permit, so you might end up getting one permit and not getting another permit, right? And that fact that you're missing the other one might push you back. For example, here in Snohomish County, where I did a bunch of townhomes, I got a building permit, right? And we're doing the project, but each of those buildings had to have a fire sprinkler system installed, and that permit took forever to get. So I knew that we needed it, but I didn't know how long it's gonna take. So the best option for you would be to look at everything and make sure that you have every permit on hand. Obviously, that might not be feasible every time, but it should be something to be mindful of when you're starting a project. If you're missing 3 permits, you really should not be starting a project. Now, this one is more specific to your subcontractors if you are the project owner, and it is unrealistic timelines. I love this one, okay? When people are trying to get your work, when you're telling them, look, can you install these tiles or do the siding or whatever, they might just tell you, yeah, it's gonna take me 2 days to do this. Look, even as a novice in this, field, you should kind of know how long things take. And if somebody tells you that they're gonna do entire siding for you in 2 days, it might be a red flag, okay? They might be just trying to get your job, okay? So at that point, you might say, hey, are you sure this is something that's possible? Or have you ever done this before where it took you 2 days? Something like that. So if there's anybody that wants unrealistic timelines, it should be a red flag. You know, or if you're doing a remodel for somebody or something like that, and they end up telling you, I would love to do this project, and I would like to move in 2 months, and you completely know that this is not possible because, like I said, you're a professional, you're doing this, you know these things. You might want to tell that homeowner, hey, this is not happening in 2 months, dude. No matter what you planned, this is not happening. Always give yourself more time. Sometimes you'll be working with a partner or somebody that, you know, gives money and you're the contractor type of deal where you're kind of doing it together. That person might not know enough about process of construction and development. And just because they funded the project and you guys are partners, it doesn't mean that they know the timing. So if they expect you to do something really fast, you gotta tell them the same thing. Hey, we're partners here. I'm trying to make money just like you are. I'm doing my part, but this is how long it takes. Okay? So don't expect it done in 2 months when it takes 4 months. This one is all about your subcontractors. Inexperienced or unreliable subcontractor should be a red flag. A large down payment, or any down payment in my book, but a large down payment, stay away from them, okay? If they're inexperienced or unreliable, they might give you a good price, but if you heard something about, you know, that these guys are not on point, don't go with them. It doesn't matter about the price. You might get frustrated and it might take longer. That price might turn out to be a lot more than, you know, initially what they said, because they're not coming, they're not doing their job, okay? And the second thing is large down payment. Don't ever give large down payments. Don't ever give any down payments, to be honest. You know, if they're your subcontractors and you constantly feed them work and you constantly doing projects with them, they don't need any down payment. If they can't handle one job without getting a down payment, then they're just not a quality company, okay? For me, I don't pay down payments for my subcontractors, okay? Lack of clear communication channels. What I mean is, if there is no, if you're doing something for somebody and they're not around, you can't get a hold of them, they're kind of being weird, or same thing for your subcontractor. You know, you're trying to do something with them and you text them or call them and they're not communicating with you. The communication needs to be there. That's the most important thing, you know? You gotta be able to communicate with these people. So if there's a lack of communication initially, they're just not responding well or something's going on, it should be a red flag. Now, it doesn't mean that, you know, the person is a terrible person. It might be just a way they deal with stuff, but you should figure out a way to reach that person, because you will need them, you know? If they don't respond well to text messages, fine, call them. If they don't like calls, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that there is a channel of communication. If it's missing, it's a red flag. You should try find somebody else. Change orders without proper documentation. Now, I have a whole thing about change orders and how to deal with them, but if your contractor keeps doing that all the time, you know, like once, twice, 3 times, they keep doing, they change something, they don't tell you about it, you don't know about it, it's a red flag. You don't want to be working with these people, you know? You need to have a method of communication where everybody knows what's going on. And if they keep doing this thing on their own and they don't tell you about it, you really should not work with them. Missing or non-compliant inspections. Now, this is a tricky one because you really should not be missing inspections, period, right? Because you're in charge. Even though it's a plumbing inspection or electrical inspection, you know about all the inspections. You get a sheet and you make sure that you know the order of which inspection is in order, you know, which one's what, and then make sure that they are getting done. So that's on you if they're missing. But if you see somebody and they're failing the inspection 4 times in a row, that should be a red flag. That means that that person is not a professional. They don't know what they're doing. They're new at it. They maybe just got a license. I don't know what it is. But if they fail an inspection more than twice, it should be a red flag. Okay, it happens, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, this is an interesting one. I'm gonna take an example of a Finnish carpenter installing a kitchen, right? So there's lots of stuff to do there. You know, there's installation, that there's putting in shelves, that there's fillers, there's little trims, there's all kinds of stuff, there's handles, ton of stuff, right? if your subcontractor is not willing to go through a punch list, like a final punch list, because sometimes they miss stuff, and certain contractors have an easy job, put in something here and that's that, there's really no final punch list. But more like finish work, you have to tell these people, yo, we're gonna have a punch list, and if we don't hit everything, then you either you don't get paid or you don't get the final payment or something like that. But usually on like stuff that you can see, not framing, even though framing does have a punch list, but like tile work, trim work, kitchen, stuff like that, you need to have a punch list, like a final punch list, something before you pay them, like final payment. Obviously you're going to pay them somewhat before that, according to your plan, but they need to understand that there is a final punch list, and then that's part of your plan, that's part of your business. So if they don't like that it just indicates to me that they're in it to make some quick money and get the hell out. They don't care about the relationship and future jobs with you. And finally, dispute over final payment. Now, you can't really do too much about this, because if they finish the job and you're happy with the job and all of that, and all of a sudden they ask you for more money, that's something that you're gonna have to go back to the contract and dispute that and all of that, because the last payment is crucial. It sets the tone for the next project. If they're a nice person, if they're good, they're gonna stick to their word and charge you whatever the agreement was, versus taking an opportunity to sort of stick it to you and get more money out of you on the last payment, because the last payment, that's the one that is final. And so if they're changing their price in the last payment, they're really not in it for the long run. They're kind of they're out there trying to make money and scheme on people. So if they're changing the last payment or asking for more money in the last payment, just try to avoid working with them again.